times. Queer times. Queer times.
Hi, Harrison.
Hi, Kristen. Welcome to Queer Times.
Welcome to Queer Times.
Yeah. How have you been, Kristen?
I've been great. And yourself, Harrison?
Really good. Happy Lesbian Visibility Week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I felt so seen this week.
I felt like our podcast launch ended up as part of the Lesbian Visibility Week programming, and I was very honored to
be an honorary lesbian.
Be a footnote in that.
We love it.
Week. Yeah.
So this is our first real episode.
Yeah.
Breaking, right? We did the introductory. That was last week, and now we're going to dive into what we do.
Yeah.
And what we do is a little breaking news.
Yeah.
What do you got?
This past week, everyone's least favorite. That is, to call him the least favorite Republican seems a little crazy. But George Santos was back in the news, hopefully for the last time.
Okay. Yeah, they sentenced him to 7 years.
87 months.
In
federal prison.
Yeah, that's a little more than 7 years.
Yeah. For how many counts? 23 counts.
I'm gonna say that I'm just gonna read this to you.
Well, let's give the overview first.
Okay,
so
give me
George
the overview.
Santos was sentenced to 87 months, which is just over 7 years, and was ordered to pay nearly $375,000 in restitution and forfeit over $200,000 in ill-gotten gains. The majority of these felony counts were for wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and theft of public funds and money laundering. And I think
now these charges all stem from his campaign, correct?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The aggravated identity theft, I think, is the craziest thing because he basically took the credit cards of people that were donating to his campaign and stole money from them.
Like use them to book to a plane ticket somewhere, or
yeah. And he also stole money from theft of public funds. Basically, as he took campaign donations and used them to buy tacky clothes.
All right. Here's the thing.
Okay.
Not the first, not the last. This is
No.
homophobia.
I don't doubt that. I think if he was a little more in line with what one would think of when it comes to the Republican Party, he might have been a little more protected.
You can't be much more in line with the Republican Party than he is, with the exception of being a homosexual.
Because he's a grifter,
He's a con man. He exaggerates his personal history.
Yeah.
He does literally everything the rest of the Republican Party is doing, but for some reason he's being held accountable.
Yeah.
And I wonder what that reason could possibly be.
Yeah. Like, when is Matt Gaetz going to prison for allegedly sleeping with a 17-year-old?
But no, I don't think that's a fair comparison, and I don't think it's a comparison we should make about a homosexual.
I'm just saying charges. I'm not saying that either thing is comparable.
But it is when you compare it.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I hear what you're saying.
He's grifting.
Yeah.
It's not comparable to sex with a minor.
Right.
He's grifting in the same way that they all grift.
Mm-hmm.
Their entire platform since Trump became a member of that party and kind of took it over has been grifting and exaggerating and lying and using money and gold shoes and meme coins and all of these things.
Yeah.
I think George Santos is an annoying person. I don't care for him, but I do think that he did exactly what 80% of the Republican Party does, and for some reason he's going to go to jail for over 7 years, and that to me feels a little homophobic.
Yeah, I hear you. I did find a timeline of George Santos charges and accusations, which I think there is some gems in
All right, you're right, except for this part, because he's actually a fucking criminal.
Yeah. So in 2008, Santos was charged with stealing a checkbook and then cashing a check, a fraudulent check, obviously, to purchase a pair of shoes in Brazil. He admitted to the crimes in Brazil, but then fled.
What year?
2008.
So he's 20 years old.
He's 2008.
He's 36 right now.
Okay.
And so 16 years ago, right?
Damn, yeah.
Or, wait, is that right?
He's born in 88?
88.
Yeah, so 20 in 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 2010.
So, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
As someone who exclusively works with 18 to 20-year-olds, not fully developed brain. And again, I do not like this guy. I'm not saying that he's not a problem. I believe he's very much a problem. But I am just saying that if I'm going to go back to his criminal history, quote, making a question, young queer people making questionable decisions.
But like stealing checkbooks, writing a check to cash, and then buying shoes?
No, it's wrong.
Yeah.
But how many pairs of shoes?
Right.
Like, how much was the check for? Are we talking $100?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, for that to get lumped in, I'm like, all right, that's actually anything under.
This is just added color.
Okay, all right, okay. And why am I so on Santos's dick right now? By the way, I'm like, he's great. I hate him. But this whole thing feels like it's just a thing that feels like a media scandal distraction thing that we're like, we know he's annoying. We all know who that gay is, and actually, we're allowed to have annoying gays too. And he's actually just being just like every other Republican.
Yeah.
Okay,
in 2010, this is the year that he claims to graduate from college in New York City. The college has no record of his attendance. He also claims to have spent time at NYU. There is also no evidence of that either.
Now, where did he claim this?
In like his like while he was campaigning and
okay.
I went to NYU and
okay. Got
no record. 2010 to 2017, he claimed to work in asset management for Citigroup. A spokesperson for Citigroup told the New York Times that the asset management division closed in 2005.
Okay.
They could also not find record of him as an employee anywhere in their roles. And so, he also couldn't be found in the files of Goldman Sachs, where he also claimed to have worked.
Okay. So he fudged his resume.
Seemingly over and over and over again.
Okay.
And if you take away the things that we know are wrong, there's just nothing left. In 2013 to 2018, he said that he was running...
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
He said that he was running a charity for rescue animals called Friends of Pets United.
Fuck this guy if he fucks with rescue animals.
Right. But the charity lacks official registration. In 2017, he threw a fundraiser for the charity with tickets costing $50 per person, and the fundraising organizers said they never received any of the money.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
To be on the other side of that, to be the person who's like, oh, you're throwing an event.
The funny thing is, in 2023, the New York Times reported that Brazilian authorities were reopening their case against Santos in regards to the stolen checkbook.
All right, it had to be an
amount.
It had to be an amount.
Yeah.
In order for them to reopen the case, unless, of course.
So in May 10th, 2023, federal prosecutors indicted Santos on 13 counts, wire fraud, stealing public funds, and then later that year in October, they added a new indictment that added 10 more counts to Santos's existing 13, which added up to the 23 that he was just found guilty for. In December, 2 months later, he became the 6th member of Congress ever in U.S. history to be expelled from the House of Representatives.
I'm just like, I'm obviously the theft. Definitely the theft. Do the time for that theft. Everything else to me feels like we suddenly care about the truth.
I hear you.
And we don't. And so for those reasons, I just feel like 7 years is a lot.
I feel like everything about this is right, but I also feel like everyone should be held to this level of accountability and standards.
Yes, if you're going to, correct.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone should be able to lie willy-nilly, but since everyone is lying willy-nilly, it's just interesting to me that maybe he's not really gay. That's a lie I could get behind.
There's also...
I don't want to claim him.
That's kind of like the reality of everything that happened, but there are even more... There's then a list in this article about even crazier things that he's said that ended up not being true. He claimed to have had roles on Hannah Montana and also The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, which are
like, where did these, like, all right, we live in P-Town.
Yeah.
And any July or August day, you could walk down the street and hear some gay telling another gay a story that is not 100% accurate because that's what happens.
Yeah.
So like he claimed, where did he claim this? Did he claim it at a pool party in Puerto Vallarta, or did he? I
mean, he claimed it with a microphone in his face and a camera on him while he was running for U.S. office.
Yeah, great. Trump says he is the healthiest person in the world.
Yeah. He also claimed that he was Jewish on his mother's side and a descendant of Holocaust survivors, which isn't true. And he later was like, I never claimed to be Jewish.
Oh, that's right. He said he claimed to be Jew-ish.
Stop it.
No, he did. He was like,
crazy.
I said I was Jew-ish. And I was like, that's not better.
That's not a thing.
That's not better.
He also said that his mother was in the World Trade Center on 9/11. which NBC did an investigation and found that she was actually living in Brazil at the time.
Okay, so we're actually dealing with a mental health situation.
Yeah, he's clearly a pathological liar.
Right.
But I feel like he's just one of those narcissists who thinks like, oh, I can do and say whatever I want and I'll never get held accountable for it. Maybe because the president of the United States does the same thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But now he's being held accountable for it.
Yeah.
Maybe because he's a homosexual.
But the thing is, I'm happy to see that he'll probably go away because of this. Meaning, after he was removed.
Have you never heard of Gypsy Rose?
Right.
Going to prison is just the beginning, baby.
I really hope
this
so.
is there's gonna be life after lockup.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a 2020 interview about him going to prison. There's gonna be a dateline of him while he's in prison.
Yeah.
There's gonna be once he's out early for good behavior.
But I also think I'm sick and tired of seeing kind of left-wing podcasters put him on their show to get views and to like create an argument with someone who doesn't deserve to be argued with. Like people using what a bad person he is to get views for themselves, I feel like kind of makes you a bad person.
So you're saying you don't want George Santos as a guest on our podcast?
Absolutely not.
You don't have
If he knocked on this door right now and asked to be on our podcast, I would say absolutely not.
See, I don't know if I would say absolutely not. I wouldn't seek him out, but I would have a conversation with someone and I would be like, George, who hurt you?
Right.
What happened?
But like, why are you always lying?
Why are you always lying? You don't have to lie.
Yeah.
Have you thought about authenticity?
But also it's like, it's too little too late. I don't care. Go away.
No, I'm done.
Yeah.
No. I mean, but I will say, given the option to choose breaking news this week, you went right to George Santos.
Only because it was the end. Only because I view this as the end of George Santos, which is what I'm hoping.
It is the end. Have we had any gays come out who are like, yeah, I dated that guy?
No.
So we don't even know.
Or not that I know of.
So we don't even know if he's a homosexual.
True.
I mean, it could be something like, he seems a little gay. But like, it could be something that is another thing that he thought would make him stand out in the Republican Party. Like, wow, you know what? No, I don't think anybody's fucking that, to be honest.
No.
Like, I think it's more of an ace vibe than anything else. And so I feel like maybe he was just like, queer Republican, woo, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, and it worked. I've always said, like, if I was willing to lose any shred of integrity that I might have left, I feel like if I could be a Republican and within 6 months, I would be getting paid $100,000 to speak at conventions, you know, which is kind of what I imagine he probably did.
Should we do it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So George Santos going to prison, a little over 7 years. Let's see what happens. Let's see where he's going. Let's see whose prison bitch he's going to be.
Yeah.
All right. And hopefully for Harrison, we won't have to hear about him
ever again.
I actually don't like him either, but I do just, I don't know, it just feels a little.
I feel like if he wasn't
double standardy.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who could be held accountable to this level, and that would be fantastic.
Correct.
Yeah.
If this were the beginning of a sudden accountability trend amongst the Republican Party, I would be here for that.
But like, yeah, right.
It's not. It's saying that they care about accountability by scapegoating the one homosexual in their ranks who was definitely a problem, but not the biggest problem amongst their ranks, but a problem based on what they prioritize.
Yeah. But I'm happy to see him go.
Same.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Was that it?
That was it. I'm a big fan of Drag Race.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, especially living in Provincetown and I work in nightlife, you often connect with different stars from Drag Race. They're a little more like, especially in Provincetown, a lot of Drag Race girls are kicking around, doing shows and things. And I never met Jiggly Caliente, but she passed away this past week. And I just know it's such a small community. And I'm so grateful to everyone who's been on the show for allowing a glimpse into their life and sharing their art with the community. And also, especially when Jiggly was on the show, this was at a time where drag wasn't the biggest thing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go on Drag Race and be famous. It really was, for the love of the art. And she was a favorite contestant of mine. I think she was really great TV. She seemed really kind-hearted, sweet, talented. And it's really sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Andy, my co-producer for Fruit Basket, was a friend in New York, and is very sad. They're like just the sweetest person.
Yeah. And she was really successful. She was on Broad City. She was on Pose. She was a regular judge on Drag Race Philippines. And recently I think a few seasons ago, she was on All Stars. And it's really sad, but it's also amazing to see that I imagine she accomplished a lot of her dreams.
In a very short time.
Yeah.
She was young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Jiggly.
Yeah. May I call you Jiggly? Okay. Let's do the episode now.
Queer as in. Where would you like to start?
Trump recently entirely disbanded the board of the Kennedy Center and then implemented himself as the chair of the board in a absolutely crazy third person, like, I'm going to put on the best chair of the board, Donald J. Trump. Like, that's an insane way to announce yourself as the head of the board of directors.
Could you imagine, let's just say we're throwing a party.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we're throwing a party and it's a family reunion. It's a family reunion and everyone's going to meet at the community center and grandpa's going to run the playlist. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that is just like we are putting the oldest, whitest, out of touch person in charge of the fun stuff. Right. It's not going to be awesome.
No.
It's going to be a lot of like little girls in American flag outfits
singing
out of key about America, and it's going to feel creepy. It's going to feel creepier than any drag queen has ever felt at the Kennedy Center.
Right. I know, I fully agree. But he did say that his overhaul was specifically motivated to end drag shows that the Kennedy Center occasionally hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think as we look at all of these things, I think it is this weird way of whittling away and getting closer and closer to banning all queer people, criminalizing, dehumanizing. And I do think banning drag queens is this way of conflating drag queens with trans people.
Correct.
It's
making it not performance or art, right? Which is what it is. It's making, saying that, like, I don't want to say that drag queen is an identity, because clearly it is, but it is a character that someone is playing. And they definitely don't want us to think of it that way, or anyone. They want it to be a perverse, not a theatrical event.
And I don't even know if this needs to be said specifically to our audience, whatever that may be, but drag is an art form like all art forms, and saying, yes, there are drag performances that are explicitly inappropriate for children, but that's like saying we should ban movies because some movies are inappropriate for children.
Correct.
Or TV shows or whatever.
I don't think a lot of people get that. And I think
what it boils down to is trying to dehumanize LGBTQ plus and queer people and minimize us to the sex that we're having. So that to invoke
they can be jealous.
Right. But no, to invoke a like kind of a disgust response, and therefore associate that with our entire identities, so that people can have this disgust response to our entire identity because they associate with our identity with the sex we're having.
Yes.
And I know people will be like, well, that's what gay is. You're saying being gay is saying I have sex with this person, and that is the crux of the identity.
Yeah.
But also then you see straight people like gender reveal parties, birth announcements. We're trying to have a baby. Like, you're allowed to talk. Straight people are allowed and encouraged, and there is no disgust response to the sex that they are having. But like, we're trying to have a baby. Imagine if they just started like, oh, I'm taking loads.
I think you should. I think that actually, let's do an entire campaign of announcements, the way people announce they're trying to have a baby.
Along with this, they also recently removed a National Symphony Orchestra Pride concert. This was called A Peacock Among Pigeons, and it was actually due to take place during World Pride.
A peacock among pigeons?
I just imagine like every single person, you know how the like 55-year-old gay couple wearing like crazy patterned button downs with really tall collars where like the flip up is a different pattern.
I do know that gay.
That's who's at that concert.
100%.
They're a peacock among pigeons.
But they bought that shirt.
They did, and they're just kooky like that. And that's very gay, not queer.
Disagree.
Fine.
Because wearing that shirt in Dallas at the Petroleum Club holiday dinner is fucking queer. And everyone's going to call him a queer behind his back.
I think gayness and queerness, the big separation is, for me, is the idea that you're being yourself and also allowing, encouraging, and supporting everyone around you to be themselves. And I bet you those, again, making rash generalizations, but the way I see those people and stereotype those people, I imagine when they're in their circles with their straight friends, it's like, I'm one of the cool queer people. I'm not like those crazy trans people.
Fair.
And
Okay.
that is my distinction between gay and queer.
I just think that there's still a lot of people being the first one in circles in a lot of places around this country. And
you can be the first gay one. It
Yeah.
just doesn't make you the first queer one.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah, World Pride is actually in DC this year, and I hope that I think it is time for I don't want to say a reimagination of Pride, but maybe a little back to our roots. Pride was a protest. It's the reason Pride Month is in June is because that is when the Stonewall riots happened in New York, and also other riots were simultaneously happening in San Francisco. And that's the reason it's in June. And I think over time, how do I want to put this? I don't want to say we got comfortable, but we all really thought we were getting to the finish line.
I think there was some comfort.
Yeah.
I think there was some comfort. And it definitely felt like, gay marriage was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt like we were making progress and we
Right.
got comfortable. I think that there's also, we don't live in a bubble. We don't live in a vacuum. Capitalism was happening around us, So I think that the fact that we suddenly started partnering with banks, there was this air of, oh my God, oh wait.
The banks love us
The
now.
banks love us now? Oh my God, right? I think there was that. And I think it was nice to have somebody donate to a cause that we could listen. Gays throw the best parties. Give us your money. We'll give you a hell of a parade. Right. And that was a good time for everybody. And that felt like okay for a minute. Right. You had the debates of should there be naked go-go boys on a parade if the parade is for everybody? And like, is that us remember that whole era of debates? Like, are we hypersexualizing ourselves? Or are we trying too hard to be just like you?
Yeah.
We're not scary queers. We're just like you.
Yeah. And then there was also the debate around like, should police be in Pride, especially considering Pride is based off of a protest against police brutality against queer people. And
then all the lesbians were like, but we became cops to fix that.
Right. But especially there's still violence against the queer community, specifically trans people, being perpetuated by the police force.
In fairness, there's also violence against a lot of different people by the police force. So they are problematic across the spectrum.
I guess I'm just saying, I think we need to get back.
But wasn't the hope that by including police in the parade, that might change Tony's mind? And then maybe the next time he sees a trans person, he sees a person. Do you know what I mean? I think that at the core of the why in our diversity, equity, and inclusion, in our inclusivity was like, oh, well, if we're making strides within this system, then we are humanizing ourselves to these people who hold this power, who often abuse us. And it's a fucked up way to do it. But I do think that was part of it, was let's get these people familiar with diversity in the people they're arresting.
I guess I'm just hoping that with World Pride happening in DC this May, I think we have to go back to what was the kind of the quote around during the AIDS crisis? It was mourn in the morning, protest and organize in the afternoon,
Dance all night.
and dance all night. I think
Yeah.
that we have to get a little back to that because now is the time to refocus Pride as a protest, especially considering World Pride is happening in DC.
What does that look like?
I know you're kind of anti stand around and hold signs, but I think that could be really powerful.
I'm not anti stand around and hold signs. I am questioning the impact it has. That's more than a photo op. I think that is. I think and listen, I'm someone who went to the Women's March in 2017, right? Like I got on a bus from here, I went to DC, I held a sign, I felt the power of that community, I felt emboldened, I felt like a resistance was starting. Right? Like, so yes to that, but also I do believe in the power of collective action.
So you're saying we should storm the Capitol?
I'm not saying that. I would
Good.
never say that into a microphone ever.
Right.
What I would say is that let's have there be some protests and let's have it be strategic.
Mhm.
And let's have it not just be us standing outside while they're literally in the White House laughing, because they will be.
Mhm.
Right. Let's make it uncomfortable. Let's, it's no longer are the days of like, oh my God, you shut down the freeway. Boo. No, sorry. We have to disrupt in a way that has an impact outside of just standing in a designated area that they've given you a permit to protest in.
Right.
Right? Like,
I hear you.
is that protesting? If they're like, you can protest if you're here.
I agree.
But
No buts.
oh,
But I don't know the answer to what should be done. I feel like the pushback all has to be neat and in these categories, like you're saying. Like our politicians constantly, we're filing a lawsuit. I'm like, yeah, there were so many lawsuits and he still became president.
the arms of justice move slow. Is that what they say? Like,
Yeah.
I think that is really why they're moving so quickly, is that they can do so many things before the judicial branch catches up and wreak a lot of havoc before anything gets blocked or implement. I don't know. I just feel like I hate to say it, but it's that move fast, break things mentality but they don't realize the amount of people they are fucking with.
Yeah.
If you were slated to perform at the Kennedy Center, would you do that performance?
I don't know. Like, I know some people have pulled out already. Issa Rae canceled something.
Do the more famous people pull out? I actually went to the site and I know.
Drag Issa Rae.
No. I think that those people should pull out.
Yeah.
I think that the more popular people, Issa Rae, should pull out. My question is, what about the people who are less popular but popular enough to get a gig at the Kennedy Center?
I would hope that they would use being on stage at the Kennedy Center to critique the Kennedy Center and the actions happening around it.
That is what I would hope
Yeah.
for too. But like that they shouldn't have to give up the gig because they might not be able to, like it might be the travel might be booked. It might be expensive to give up that gig and not everybody is in a position to do that.
Yeah.
But then the question is, what happens to people who go to the Kennedy Center and violate the rules of the Kennedy Center? And what will those rules be? I think that to me is what I'm really interested in. And I don't think that the focus is just going to be on drag.
And I think there's going to come a point where the punishment for things like this are going to, for lack of a better term, kind of jump the shark. And there's going to be a shock and revelation. And it's already happening. When Trump says he wants to ban, Trump recently said that he wants to ban drag queen story hours with punishable up to a year in jail.
For the performer or for
Yes,
the people
for the
organizing?
performer. I know the performer, I'm not sure. Organizers. But in the days after Trump also installed himself as chairman of the Kennedy Center's board, he also installed a loyal right-wing operative. His name is Richard Grenell.
Okay.
As interim executive director, which is actually a newly created position, which he loves doing. But Richard Grenell actually is a gay man. But he's also a known Trump loyalist who is exceedingly willing to do Trump's bidding.
Those are the ones you hit the most.
Very much. And Trump also said that Grinnell shares his vision for a golden age of American arts and culture, which it just goes to reinforce the fact that this person will be doing his bidding. But he'll be like, it's one of those things like, it's not homophobic, it's a gay guy doing it.
And I think this is where we end up back at, is it about identity or is it about class? Because trust Richard's rich.
Yes.
His gayness is very palatable.
Yeah.
He has a husband.
No idea.
What's his name?
Richard Grinnell. But also there are plenty of poor people who in their communities are like, oh, I'm not like all those people. I still love Trump. I'm not one of those Lady Gaga gay listening guys. I'm not like other gays.
I'm a manly gay.
Right. But no, those
people in the ass. I don't get fucked in the ass.
No, but those people fully exist. So as much as I do think it boils down to class, but it still is about culture as well.
Is it homophobic if I say that those are two punchable faces? Is that?
So in addition to Donald Trump reorganizing the board at the Kennedy Center and installing himself as chairman of the board, they recently also made changes to the Stonewall National Monument. This recently became a national monument under the Biden administration, and the National Park Service has first removed the T from the LGBTQ plus acronym on their website, and then very shortly after removed the Q.
And the plus.
And the plus from the acronym.
So now it's the LGB.
Yeah, which is also, there's this weird, I don't want to say weird, because there is this movement of gay people who their whole tagline is LGB without the T. Have you heard about this?
No.
So it's these group of gay men mostly who are trying to go back to the ideal that never worked. There was, as gay rights movements were starting in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there were a lot of proponents of kind of, like you said, like being palatable and we're not weird, we're just like you.
Yeah.
And then it really took the people that really lived in the fringes of society to push forward, specifically at Stonewall. I mean, it's the insane part about removing the T from the LGBTQ plus acronym specifically at the Stonewall Monument is that the loudest voices in that protest and the people who are given credit for really starting that protest and making it what it was are trans women.
Yes, of color.
Of color. Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, Stormé Delavier. Like these trans, non-gender conforming people were the loudest voices and who pushed forward the most, and then to remove them and kind of go with this LGB without the T mentality on the Stonewall Monument, Stonewall was specifically an event that pushed back against these gay people who were like shunning specifically trans people, queer people, people of color in order to get on the good side of mainstream society.
If you Google LB without the T,
mm-hmm.
the first Reddit thread that comes up says, how does everyone feel about LGB without the T people? And the first answer is the LGB without the T people are pick-me's who figure as long as they throw the TQ part to the camps, the far right will leave them alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the best summation.
Wow, they did such a better job at doing what I was just trying to say.
No, they really summed it up. I let you try, though.
Okay.
Do you know when your awareness of transness happened?
For me, personally, there was the idea of it, but it was always this kind of like, I don't want to say like put into comedy, but there was this kind of ridiculousness around it, around trans people existing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't quite understand it, but in television and film, it was kind of like, oh, it's a man dressed as a woman.
Right.
And it was kind of it wasn't this idea that it's a true lived identity. And then honestly, I remember being like, oh, that's a real thing that people truly do and are. They transition and are trans was Chaz Bono.
Okay.
That was as a child in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, kind of not understanding, but having this realization that it is a real lived experience through that.
Chaz Bono was very much kind of my first cultural awareness of it. Even though like we all had non-binary, the Bowies and the Princes and like the people who were clearly playing with the binary of gender. But Chaz Bono, and also I had the misfortune of looking like Chaz Bono. In that time, pre-transition, I was in the silk shirts and the blazers, and I had the same hairdo, so that was fun.
You're saying unfortunate not because Chaz Bono is some horrifying looking person, but
No.
because in the cultural zeitgeist, people were like, "Wait, that's the same," and you were like, "No,
Right? Yeah,
we just
yeah.
love a silk button down."
I'm the before photo.
The like 2 weeks before.
Yeah, exactly. And then and I was one of these people, and I've since reached out and apologized. I had a friend who was very young, like 19, and was really Stevie's a pastor now. I love Stevie. And I've owned up to this because I remember being like 24, 25 in New Orleans and Stevie being a drag king, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna transition." I was like, "Are you sure?" I was that person. I was like, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but like, you're really young and like, you should wait a little while. And like, this is a crazy time to make that kind of a decision for you. And, all those things, thinking I was being a mentor, thinking as a pretty masculine identified female, kind of being like, are you, sure about this? And that was kind of my first real moment of like, oh, this is a person in my life who is really figuring shit out in a way that I don't understand. And now Stevie is a pastor, actually, which
I also think in response to what you said, like the best time to make that decision is when you make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part that I also struggle with is that true conservatism is conserve your opinions about other people's lives and keep it to yourself. And this bastardization and weaponization of government intrusion is the antithesis of conservatism. It's supposed to be you do you, I do me, fuck off. And I think that I'm into that, actually. I think that's the part that that independence is the part that makes me a little bit more to the right than I think even I realize sometimes.
Yeah.
But I want it equally distributed. Like I am here for it not being just a weaponization of a religious class to oppress people. I want it to be, we are all equally affected and we are all equally less dependent as a whole. I don't want it to be churches getting $1 gazillion in tax breaks, but not actually feeding the poor. And, I don't want it to be in Joel Osteen's pocket. Like, where is that movement? Where is the movement within the church or within religion or within politics to go after the reason why people have tax-free existences?
Yeah. And also it's like, for me, it's like as I look at all these things that are happening, the 2-gender passport policy, removing pronouns from emails, from like inter-office communications within the government, the removal of the T and the Q from Stonewall monuments, the Kennedy Center canceling concerts, and I'm just like, you want to kind of view it as like, oh, it's just homophobic and they're just trying to get rid of us. But like, they know they aren't going to get rid of us.
Right.
So what is the actual purpose and end game for all of this?
And also, I feel like we're not ever meeting there. We are smarter than them if we could just be present and deal with what they're saying instead of giving them like we are always like, oh, we know why you're doing this, right? I had a moment this morning looking at the trans-military ban. And when you go to the Heritage Foundation website, what the Heritage Foundation website says is gender dysphoria is a medical condition. And we all agree with that. That's what we agree on. And left and right. And there are hundreds of medical conditions that make you unqualified for service. Plantar's warts, Anxiety and depression is something that disqualifies you from service. So whether we know it's being done out of bias or not, the argument that they're making makes sense. And I think that it's important that we start arguing that argument. That instead of just going like, oh, you hate queers, you hate trans people, whatever it is, we need to go, oh, okay. What they're saying is this is just like any of the other thousands of reasons you can't serve in the military, not thousands, hundreds of actual medical conditions that you can't serve in the military. And that is, why aren't we figuring that out? And have we figured that out? And why don't I know about it? If we have, like, instead of just going like, this is discrimination, they're finding the loopholes to get their discrimination through. And instead of us searching for the loopholes to counter that discrimination, we're just yelling and pointing and saying they're discriminating.
Right.
And that's how we're going to lose every single time. And that's all. I was in that hole hard this morning.
I get that. But also if like you qualify something as a medical condition, but then don't allow any medical treatment for it. Right.
Like why aren't that's the counter.
I did it.
Right? We saved us.
Yeah.
America is saved. But they wouldn't. I mean, I guess that's not a military discussion. That's just a general.
Right. But
right. And that should be the counter. The counter should be, wait, the United States military says that this is a qualifying condition to make someone ineligible for service. So you're agreeing as the government that it is that it is a qualifying health condition. Therefore, you should be paying to cover these conditions the way you would cover plantar's warts, which is also a disqualifying condition.
They basically the U.S. military tweeted their stance on trans inclusion in the military on Valentine's Day, of all days. They said the hashtag U.S. Army will no longer allow transgender individuals to join the military and will stop performing or facilitating procedures associated with gender transition for service members. Stay tuned for more details.
The tweeting on Valentine's Day part, you know, like that?
I mean, it's just like, it's like the cherry on top of the absolute shit sundae.
It feels like America never had an asshole dad. Because
then they became one.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, I just feel like this is all shit an asshole dad does. Like, just to poke at you.
Yeah.
And we're all responding in a way that is exactly how they want. Right? Like, of course they're going to do it on Valentine's Day because everyone's going to cover it. They're going to get so much hate shares and outrage retweets and all of it. They're going to get maximum press if they do the thing that makes them look the shittiest because they don't give a shit what you think about them.
I think a lot of people might think that this is a small issue because when you look at like trans athletes, my argument around it is that it is a very small issue within women's sports. It's a very small issue, but within the U.S. military,
not a small issue.
Not a small issue because there are statistics around trans people serving in the military, and some of these studies, like the UCLA School of Law study, they found that almost a third of trans people have served or are currently serving in the military. So this is an issue because trans people do gravitate towards being in the military. And I'm not necessarily saying, and I don't want to speak for the trans community or trans people, but I'm not sure it's a causation or a correlation. I think a lot of people go into the military because they feel lost. And I have a feeling a lot of trans people go towards the military because they're unsure of how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Then as they grow and age, they realize their trans identity.
I think that's very real. And I think also, I think there's probably feminine men who, are like, oh, I'm going to
butch
fix
up in the
this.
military.
I'm going to butch this up. I think there's also a general, if you're struggling with your identity, then maybe you're struggling in other areas of your life as you're trying to figure yourself out. And maybe it's a solution. It's the same for poor people, right? Like it's a solution to homelessness. it's a solution to, you're going to get food and a place to sleep, and you're going to be able to stabilize your life in a way that maybe you would have been unable to do.
Yeah. There's also a lot of gender dysphoria around one's physical appearance. And when you go into the military, tell me what shoes to wear, tell me what clothes to wear, tell me how to wear my hair, tell me how to exist because I don't know. Because when I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see, and I don't know how to make decisions around my physical appearance to that feels true to myself. So tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Hmm.
But ever since Trump won and then took over office, for me, it's like I'm always trying to look towards solutions and how, as a person living in a community like Provincetown and just any community, I'm, I look at things like this and it's like I personally can't affect the military stance on trans people in the immediate. So I've kind of stayed away from really diving into things like this and instead am supporting the trans people in my community,
Right.
which is why this episode, when I got into researching it, not a lot of it was new. I knew all of this was happening, but to really wrap my brain around it, to speak about it on this episode was a challenge.
I'm not in the military. I do, obviously trans rights matter to me in the work that I do, and as a person. So I've been low key trying to pay attention to that. Um, but I do think that if it's not directly affecting people, there's so much of it that it's easy to be incredibly uninformed.
Mm.
But I'm not sure that that's a bad thing. I'm not convinced that we all have to know every single component of everything right now because it will make our head explode, and that's the point.
I think it's about kind of looking at yourself, looking at your community, and obviously there's has to be a long game that's in the back of your head, but in the immediate, I think it's about reaching out to people that you are close with, people that are in your community that are being affected by this. Um, the Latinx people in your community, the trans people in your community, and
Make a plan, make it offline.
yeah, and also like letting them be heard by you and letting them voice their fears, but also looking inward. And if you're not a person who is directly affected by this, how you can help them specifically in your community. Because we all want to help everyone in the country, everyone in the world, but we have to think about our capacities and our limitations. And
I fucked that up the other day.
what do you mean?
I ran into somebody who is dealing with the immigration situation.
Mm,
I realized it midway and was able to kind of correct myself, but they were just kind of talking about just how afraid they were
mm.
right now, and I was like, I mean, at least here is better, and like it's not,
No,
and
we want to think that.
yeah, no, I did want to think that, but I will say that like I kind of recognized it happening, and then afterwards I was like, all right, so what can you do, right? Like, and I
Mm,
can't tell you what I would do because I would never broadcast that on the internet.
yeah,
But what sort of local plans can be made
right.
to help?
And also, for a little bit of context around that, in Provincetown a few weeks ago, there was a post on our local community sharing space on Facebook, and someone posted that they saw 5 black SUVs in succession driving down the one road that leads into Provincetown, which really invoked a lot of fear into a lot of people in town. Obviously, we have a rather large immigrant population here in Provincetown,
Mhm.
and it also, I think it turned out to be a hoax. There was kind of no confirmation of whether it was real or not. But if for people who have never been to Provincetown, if there were 5 black SUVs in Provincetown,
And they weren't going to a Democratic fundraiser?
right, every person in town would know within about 4 minutes.
Yeah. It is very small town.
Yeah,
We have
there's nowhere to hide 5 SUVs in Provincetown.
nor to hide them on the way out here because there's one ride.
Yeah, there's one road coming in and out. There's 3 roads in town.
Yeah.
But it really did invoke a lot of fear in town. I work at a bar that was launching the first night of their Latin gathering night the Monday after that weekend. And my friend who was organizing it reached out and said, "Hey, I'm just, I'm not going to promote this online.
Yeah.
I'm promoting it through
The community.
actual community, sending it to friends who can then send it to friends." And it was really special because it did gather, and the person organizing saying it was a lot of conversations about what had happened that weekend, and in a celebratory place they were able to be together, listen to music, have fun together, but also share their fears with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that helped. And it this is really what speakeasies were for. I mean, I
Correct.
know it was a lot based around prohibition, but speakeasies were designed of a way to gather like-minded people to be safe together without letting everyone know, because if you let everyone know, you wouldn't be safe.
Right.
I think we have an episode.
I think so. We talked for a
Oh,
while.
let's get out of here.
Queer is in.